There we go. I believe we are live. Good evening, people, beautiful souls. Mwah, mwah. And welcome to Self-Love Talks with some very favorite, dear old friends, actually. Very wonderful friends that I used to spend quite a bit of time with, but not in a long time. I haven't seen either of you in real life for years. And since I last saw you, or you saw me, we've kind of blossomed, let's say, haven't we?
You speak for yourself.
We got busy. No, you're definitely glowing and blooming, Chris. No, we've all been really busy doing incredible things. And so it's really brilliant because actually the people in my I Love You Me community and my Self-Love Talks viewers, they requested you guys. Oh, and I'm like, they're my old mates. So, so it's really brilliant.
What exquisite taste they have.
I know, right?
Indeed.
They're almost part of the family. If they know all three of us, there must be something going on there. So it's really wonderful to have you guys. Can everybody just let me know if we are loud and clear and you can hear us and we're all good? Because sometimes my tech, I'm not so good. Let me just check. Can you guys see us on the live? Chris and Rosie, did you join in the group as well? Can you see yourselves live?
Oh, I need to get my phone on. I turned my phone off so that I
won't. No, it's all right. I found us.
I
found us. We're all live.
Yay!
So hello, everyone who's watching. Thanks for being here. And do shout out where you're from and how you're feeling today and which one of us you know.
Yeah.
If you've met Chris and Rosie before, do give them a wave. So guys, how are you doing? Like literally right now in this moment, what's alive for you? What's real for you at the moment? What are you inspired by?
Ladies first.
Oh, thanks for calling me a lady, babe. Love it.
I can do an intro actually, to be fair. I missed the intro, I got really excited there. Introduce yourselves. Tell everybody what you are doing and how they can find you first, and then
we'll do the rest. Okay, cool. Hello, everybody. Lovely to be here, and so lovely to be here with you, Tara. I am Rosanna, known as Rosie Glow, and you can find me on rosieglow.com and also on YouTube and on all the socials, etc. Basically, I've been calling myself a multidimensional success coach even in the last few years, but you know me from yoga teaching days and, you know, doing other bits and bobs. But essentially, I am in a place where I'm really enjoying having co-created the things I wanted in my life and just being like, wow, it's happened, and following a process over these years. And it's just been like teaching that now and sharing that with the world. So it's been a really beautiful few years. I think it's probably been about the last time we saw each other, Tara, we were probably in unicorn onesies or something like that at a zoo party, I imagine. But yes, these days I'm here, and what I have to say is from the moment we had the conversation about the drama triangle and this full moon growing, I've just been observing it in real life. Hilarious. I am a Leo, so obviously this moon's rather expansive for me, but that's where I am.
Thank you, Rosie. I can't wait, actually. It'd be really fun to hear what you've manifested for yourself and how you do that. Share that with people in a bit. But yeah, thank you. Chris, you go.
Okay, my name's Chris Paradox, and I still am, I guess, a one-legged existentialist stand-up beat poet and inspiration engineer. And what I do, I guess 3 years ago, I fully surrendered my agenda and my ambitions in the world to become what I know we all are, an instrument of God's love. And since I've done that, my life has just blossomed, as Tara said, and I'm now doing a regular show called the End Times Daily Show, which I started in June, which is a wonderful vehicle for me, basically 5 nights a week, because we do a private one for 2 hours a night, to be an instrument of God's love. And I can tell you it's the best job in the world.
Yay! Ruled by divine will, how wonderful. And you are glowing, actually both of you are glowing. It's brilliant to see your faces again after all this time. Chris, you've done some incredible things. I know you've got some stories to share and some amazing life stories. But coming back, how can people find you as well, Chris? Quickly tell people how they can find you.
So on Facebook, my profile is Chris Patterson, which is my born name. I have a page called Chris Paradox, the Inspiration Engineer. And on YouTube, I'm just Chris Paradox.
Yay, thank you.
There are a couple of other ones, the cheeky buggers. I noticed that when I searched on Google. What do you mean there's another Chris Paradox? How dare they?
Yeah.
But, none of them look like me, so you should be able to figure out which one it is.
And I love the way you said, am I still a one-legged poet, beat poet, whatever it was you said, upbeat, breakbeat poet?
One-legged existentialist stand-up beat poet, yeah. Sorry, it just usually trips off the tongue. Come on, put yourself together, Tara.
I know, mate, honestly. I was like, well, did you grow another leg? Maybe he's not one-legged anymore. He's got
No,
three.
I knew I was still one-legged. It was the poet bit that I was sure about.
And I actually remember you, this is going way off tangent, but I remember you way before you had the one leg, when you still had the two legs, and in a festival like 15, 16 years ago.
Probably Big Green, I'm thinking. It was probably Big Green or something like that.
Green,
or Butterfield, yeah.
Yeah, giving each other piggybacks.
Yeah.
I know, right? Anyway, I'm just going to stop reminiscing. It's really wonderful to see my old friends.
Okay, serious and professional.
Definitely not. So we're you're right, Rosie, full moon exactly today. And I didn't realize, and yesterday was my birthday, and I'm an Aquarian.
Happy birthday.
So for me, it's my opposite. As you know, Leo and Aquarius are completely opposite. So this full moon, I was like, oh, that's what going. I had a total wobble. Does anybody else have wobbles on their birthday? Like every year without fail?
Mm-hmm.
No, you don't, Chris? No, I get this little birthday and it's my little inner child wobble, and then realizing it's the full moon. And exactly right. I was chatting to you two and saying, I'm really noticing really massively this it's sort of victim, what do you call it? Protagonist, rescuer or savior triangle, the drama triangle, and how that seems to be exponentializing everywhere, like bigger than I've ever noticed it before. As people are reaching for all kinds of saviors and heroes and blaming this and blaming that. And it just seems to have got so enormous, and the drama has become so enormous. So I thought it'd be kind of a fun and interesting, helpful thing for us to expand on, because I know in both of your line of work, it is about self-love, it is about empowerment, it is about not just going round from one to the other, but really liberating yourself from that space. But before we get into that, I'd really love to know from each of you, what made you realize, what was your trigger that made, or event, that awakening moment when you realized, oh my goodness, I'm doing this and I can free myself from that?
First,
Chris, you're so polite. Thank you, darling. I appreciate that. Actually, this was probably the watershed between sort of having been doing 15 years of slow incremental growth, as I said, as a yoga teacher, Reiki master, all the sort of holistic tools that you're kind of stumbling along with, having little wins and then falling backwards a bit and feeling like it's progress because you're on your path, and, you know, rescuer syndrome, full stop, right? So there was a point at which I had to move to Brighton. Like, my daughter had moved ahead of me, and she'd ended up in a real mess, basically, long and short of it. And I needed to move down. And once I realized that, she was living with her dad, I came down in 6 weeks. And it was this moment that was really clear that whatever I was able to actually do in my outer world with my clients, I couldn't do at home. I was just so blind to it. You know, it was like I was stuck in this cycle where my child hated me. Like, whatever anyone else thought about me, it was irrelevant. You know, this kid was in a lot of pain. And also, you know, for all the fact that I was following what I thought was my soul path, I was run ragged, I was strung out, I didn't have any money, I didn't have time for a relationship. And certainly the kind of guys I was attracting were never available one way or another. So it was like, somehow I was left out of the equation. And it was like, something's not right here. There's an outer inner mismatch. And it was actually the book, The Honeymoon Effect, which I'd already read Bruce Lipton's work before, the Biology of Belief, but the Honeymoon Effect, I remember reading and being like, I want that. And it's told me what it is, but not how to do it. So then I was referencing all the people he'd recommended and looking things up, and most were out of my price range. But I came across my teacher, Susanna, and she was all about paradise, and she had this twin flame relationship, and I was invested. I was like, I want that. I'm prepared to do whatever the work is that I need to do so that my relationship with myself, my daughter, my life, my partner, whoever he is when he comes in, reflects what I feel I can achieve in the world, you know, what I do with my clients. And it was like that. It's almost like you've trained, and I did it in yoga. I trained for 10 years in Hatha, and then I retrained in Anusara, which means to flow with grace. And it was another, we're 10 years on from that, but I had to undo so much of what I'd done. And it was very frustrating, very humbling, but it structure to live in my divine truth. And I think that is so important, because you can't really get out of that pattern and that cycle unless you look at the circuitry that's actually creating that short circuiting. And that's what I've been learning and mastering and sharing. So that was it for me. Thank you, Scarlett. Thank you, my darling, for being my teacher.
That's an amazing story, Rosie. I felt you really loads, really similar to me, actually. That's probably why we connected in the first place, similar paths. Really feel you. Thanks for that. Chris, when was your moment? If there is such a thing as a moment, there's probably loads, but a memorable one.
Yeah, and props to Rosie there. Beautiful story and nice, honest, humble journey. I always look for that kind of very human. It was my daughter, you know, forced me into it. That makes sense to me. That resonates. So for me, I have this weird journey where, and I'll try to keep it brief, as we spoke earlier. 2001, I was managing director of an advertising agency, quite successful, married, my 2 sons living with me, read Conversations with God, and had a mystical experience which caused me to not be interested in money and material things anymore. That wasn't exactly what my wife had married me for. So wife left me. All of my friends at the advertising agency thought I'd gone crazy because I was talking all this spirit stuff. And I basically became a hippie overnight, from managing director of an advertising agency to hippie overnight. And in the end, my mum disowned me. Everyone just basically, apart from a couple of my friends, just thought, what's happened to this guy? And I ended up going to live under a tree in Battersea Park for 7 months and sell The Big Issue. And best thing I ever did, because the first morning I woke up basically, I know now that the choice to, when I went in, the night I went into the park, I said, okay, God, you've shown me who I am not. You've shown me that this whole world is an illusion, but you haven't shown me who I am and what I'm supposed to do. So I'm just going to live under the tree and peer. I can't live in this world, this false world. So I'm just going to live under a tree in a park and be a bum until you show me the purpose of my life. But I just said that. And when I woke up in the morning, I was in full mystical experience, loved everyone and everything, full of joy the whole time, peace, just enlightened basically. And I spent 7 months in the park making £60 an hour selling The Big Issue, because I was selling from shiny joy. I was the happiest person I know, loads of magic, miracles the whole time, the whole works. And purely just through surrender, just literally I surrendered my false identity. And I just said, okay, just show me what I'm supposed to be. And that was enough to give me that experience. 3 months in, at the age of 35, I started writing poetry for the first time ever. Never written a poem in my life. And poetry started to pour out, started to do open mics, got very successful or well-known very quickly, Paradox the Poet. And again, I know now that I formed a new false identity, which is Paradox the Poet. And so I lost my mystic experience because now I had another ego identity to protect and defend. And basically I spent the next 16 years trying to recapture the pure innocence, childlike wonder of being in the park, and did recapture it a number of times, but only temporarily. Particularly after I lost my leg, I jumped off a cliff in Mexico in 2008, lost my leg in an accident, had another mystic experience of 3 months, same thing, for the same reason, surrender. I had to surrender. When I lost my leg, I was helpless. I was reliant on people sending me money, beautiful angels, Megan, Pachan, and Sula, I love you, saving my life. And so I had to be completely surrendered. And that's my story, is that it's always about surrender. That's why I say instrument of God's love, service is to me is the simplest way. But then again, same thing. I allowed a new identity to form, and so lost that kind of peak state. So my journey's been like that. And then, so talking about your moment, about just over 3 years ago, I was doing online business and stuff like that, and all my businesses fell apart. My relationship fell apart. Whole life crashed and burned. Had to come back to London as I was homeless again, and live with my mum, who was, the queen of judgment and the queen of everything I've ever done has been wrong. And so it was a nightmare. I literally had to go and, as a 50-year-old man, go back to my mum's with my tail between my legs, for her to basically spend 2 weeks telling me, see, I told you you're no good. I told you you're no good. You and your dreams of this and poetry and then. So I had to go back to that. And in the furnace of her judgment, I started reading Love Without Conditions by Paul Ferrini and The Untethered Soul by Michael A. Singer. And they were books I'd read years before, but they were they were books of surrender. They were just like, it's not about what your ego wants. It's not about what you think you want out of life. It's about what your soul wants. And your soul wants your highest good. It wants you to be joyful and happy, but not necessarily in the way you think you're going to be joyous and happy. And so I just surrendered again. My mum helped me to get somewhere to live, a little bed sit. And I just said, okay, forget the poet. This is why I said I'm not sure if I'm a poet anymore. Forget the poetry, forget the coaching, forget the inspirational talks, forget the business ideas. I'm just going to get a normal job and be a normal person. I'm going to give up all my bollocks, basically, excuse my French. And so I got a job as a care worker for autistic teenage boys, because they need male care workers. £9.40 an hour, just in East London, bulk standard. It was, and I wanted it because I realized I'd got so in my ego about I'm paradox to this and that I just wanted a normal job and just to be normal, live in a little bed sit and have a normal job. So I started doing that, and I quickly noticed that autistic boys are like horses. When I was in Mexico as part of a horse caravan where I lost my leg, I learned to ride and I learned about horses. And one of the things you know about horses is that they're telepathic. If you're in your monkey mind, or if your emotions are triggered, the horse will feel it, and the horse will be difficult to ride. So in Mexico, I learned to calm my mind, calm my emotions, so that my horse would be cool and would be able to ride. And when I started working with the boys, I realized the same thing. If I was all up in my head or triggered emotionally, they would freak out. And one of them was quite big, and I used to have to take him to cinema and places like this, all these activities, and he could literally freak out and run into the street and die. And it just occurred to me one day when this nearly happened, that my care, the boy in my care could die if I don't take care of my own shit. That was the moment for me. And then from that point, I said, right, I'm dedicating myself to the practices that I know, that I've developed and learned over the years, to calm the mind and remain centered and present. And so I just started to do them hardcore all day, every day. And I've been doing that for 3 years. And now I'm in a place where I feel I've got a very high level of mastery over my thoughts and my emotions. I'm not attached or identified with my thoughts and emotions as much as I was. I still am. I'm not enlightened, but I'm functionally enlightened in that I don't suffer. If something bothers me, it bothers me for about 2 seconds, and I know exactly what to do to come back to peace. So I consider myself functionally enlightened, in that I might as well be enlightened for as much as I suffer. And all I want to do is share my practices and my realizations around that with as many people as possible, so that they can not suffer as well.
Yay. Talk. Great. Nice. Amazing stories. Wow. And listening to you, I'm like, it's the same for me. I could tell, so, my life story of all the times I realized, all the times I fell down the hole and went, oh, and then realize. And I even, like I was sharing with yesterday, the trigger that came up yesterday, it's so easy to just go, oh my goodness, I'm back in that loop. And I wonder if we could really spell it out for people from our experience, what that triangle is, what that drama is, and really how deep and wide it goes, because that's what I'm noticing more than ever before. So, for example, my inner child, and my little inner child, she's going, I don't even know why. It's not logical, right? Big grown-up Tara's like, everything's fine. I'm super happy. I have everything I want. There's nothing I need. There's nothing I have expectations of, nothing, right? My conscious mind, my conscious heart, my grown-up me. Somewhere inside of me, there's this little me that's just going, something's not okay. I don't feel okay. Meh. And it's them. It's somebody else out there. I don't really know who or why. I just know that I'm the poor little one right now, and it's not fair. And we can all relate to that feeling, right? It's that little. And then it's like somewhere in there, it's like I want to, without realizing, make it somebody else's job to come along and sort it out, to come along and do something that's going to make it all better and cheer me up. Could be anything. And then there's the part of me that's also then blaming somebody. But then there's another part that kicks in and goes, well, no, I shouldn't blame, because I'm bringing it up into my logical mind. I don't want to blame someone. It's nobody's fault. I'm not really blaming them. This is illogical. I need to just rescue myself. I'll take care of myself. And then there's another part that goes, but then actually, you know, I don't want to have to do it myself. I want somebody else to do it. Do you know what I mean? And it's all these little, we've all heard those voices. We all know that. And it comes up again and again. Now, when I can take a small example like that of what happened yesterday for me in a short period of time, like a little nutshell, but then go, okay, is this happening? Where else is this happening? And this is where that extrapolation happened for me, because I was like, isn't that what we're doing with all of the bad guys, the governments, the cabal, the whatever we want to call them, the Illuminati, whatever words we want to call them? And it could be either side. It's this side or that side. It's the reds, it's the blues, it's the lefts, it's the rights, it's the Americans, it's the Chinese, it's the whatever it is, all right? Or it's the blacks, it's the whites, because that's been really massive in the last 12 months, hasn't it? And it's just like, it's like somebody is the victim. And then when somebody is the victim and, you know, or it's, you know, this is actually quite a hard one to say, because it's true, children are victims. But I think to some degree, without us realizing, and I'm going to be curious and open about this. This isn't a statement, right? I'm wondering if we're also doing this. And it's a little bit contentious because it's also true. Children are victims and need to be protected. But is there something in us that's identifying with saying, okay, there are these people in the world, these disadvantaged people, these young people, these children who are suffering so horrendously, and something in our inner child relates to that, or something in our own inner victim relates to that, and then wants to almost use it to blame someone and then to make someone else the savior. Are you with me on this, guys?
Yeah,
I've kind of jumped into the big global political, everything that's going on currently, or has been going on for that since last March.
Yeah. I'm bursting to speak, but I'm going to
go speak.
No, I'm going to.
You go. Honestly, go and I'll complete after. Seriously, go for it. Go.
You sure?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so there's one word that describes what you just said there, Tara, and it's projection. It's all projection. The world is a mirror. This is what my understanding. The world is a mirror, and so everything that happens in the world, the good guys, the bad guys, the black, the white, all of that, it's a reflection of what is happening on the inside. So you described it. We all have, Jamie Cato put it best, we're all a wise guru in charge of a mental patient.
Yes. He does.
The mental patient is the little child, wounded child, it's called in some traditions. I heard a good one the other day. In 12 steps, they call it King Baby. which I think is the best one.
Aw.
King baby is because it's like a wounded child tyrant. It runs the show from its pain and fear. And this is the real issue. It's, even though we've been through our own journeys and we have our ups and downs, fundamentally what I've discovered is that healing is about facing up, walking through our fear and being with our pain. We all have wounds, if you want to call them that, blockages, impressions, samskaras they're called in the Indian tradition. So every time somebody judges you, or you feel attacked or judged or abused or anything like that, it's held in the body, usually because we don't let it pass through us. So it's held in the body. And when something reminds you of that, it triggers the same pain. And that's what we call being triggered. And the accumulation of those wounds can be called the wounded child, or the pain body, or king baby. And we've all got that. And true spiritual practice is about dissolving it, releasing it, and healing it. And that's the thing I've been doing for the last 3 years. And that's what creates the effect. It's when you're triggered, it's actually an opportunity. And I know you know this, it's an opportunity to heal, because you can't heal the old stuff until it comes into consciousness, comes into awareness. And how you heal it is by bringing pure unconditional love, or witnessing consciousness to it. That is self-love. You love yourself by accepting and allowing all your bits to be. And if you allow them to be, and don't try to change them, suppress them, indulge them, project them, that's the blame, that's the projector. I feel bad because X did Y, even though that bad feeling was in there long before they ever came along. So blame is never appropriate, because people can only trigger what's already in there. And then you have the self-critic. It's because you always mess up. You're never going to be happy. No. So you've got all these characters. You've got the perpetrator, the savior. It's just the projection of basically the conflict between the storyteller in the mind and the child that feels unloved. And this is where it comes down to self-love more than anything. The wounded child is caused by the belief that we're separate. Fundamentally, when a baby is born, separation anxiety, it spends 9 months in the womb. The womb to a baby is heaven. It's got no idea of time. So when a baby forms, it forms in heaven, the mother's womb. It's perfectly protected, doesn't even have to breathe, doesn't even do anything. It's the equivalent of heaven. And the birth process for a baby is, I've just been kicked out of heaven. And we know that children who are abused, they can't think that the abuser did something wrong. A child will blame themselves. Abused people think they feel ashamed. They feel that they did something wrong. And it's my contention that every human being that is born of woman has the wound starts there. God, why did you kick me out of heaven? Mummy, why did you kick me out of the womb? What's wrong with me? What did I do wrong to be kicked out of heaven? That is the separation anxiety, is the primal fear, the fear of separation from the mother, from the oneness, from God. And guilt and shame is the primary nature of the wound. I'm not good enough. There's something wrong with me. I'm not lovable. That's the core of the wound. And then whenever something in life, your brother, your sister, someone at school says you're bad boy, you're ugly, you're stupid, just adds to the wound. So all of us have had this added to the wound all our lives, because we're innocent and we don't know how to deal with it. And so when it happens to us, we hold on to it. We try to deal with it. We try to get rid of it, and we store it away and deny it and do all this stuff. When you grow and you realize, okay, I get it. I'm a perfect child of God, as I know you've all realized. I'm not bad. I'm not wrong. I'm not guilty. I'm not any of these things. These are just thoughts. These are just random stories. And then we learn the whole idea of victimhood. I would challenge the idea that children are victims, or anyone's a victim. Victimhood is a story. The same thing can happen to two people, and one person can say they're a victim and the other person doesn't. And this is the way I say it in practical terms. Let's say, for instance, you've been raped. I've talked to many women that have been raped, and there's one approach that brings healing and there's one that doesn't bring healing. If you say, I'm a survivor or I'm a victim of rape, if you self-identify with that you are a victim, you disempower yourself from healing, because a victim is powerless. A victim takes no responsibility. It was done to them. All the responsibility, the blame, the power is outside of them. So victimhood, identifying as a victim, is the most disempowering thing you can ever do. It's the worst thing you can ever do, and we all do it.
Well, what if that person then decides to, what if they decide to then start identifying with savior instead, or rescuer, to avoid feeling like victim? That's what I'm saying. Somebody could simply go to the other part, or go to the perpetrator, start and go, well, I'm just going to be mean to somebody else and take my shit out on somebody else because it was done to me.
They're all three sides of the same coin. I don't know how you can have a three-sided coin, but yeah, they're all projections. They're all disassociations. They're all separate. They're all basically identifications with thoughts and emotions.
Absolutely. Can I come in there? Because there's something here that's like really important. And what you said about the womb and it being heaven, I hate to say this to you, Chris, but for a lot of people, it's hell, right?
Absolutely agree.
And, when you actually look at this from a soul level, because I'm hearing you and I totally respect what you're saying, but I'm also hearing quite a lot of self-responsibility here, where we could maybe look at victim and innocent and say slightly different things here, because a victim is identifying with obviously being powerless, right? And you said your word is surrender. My word is trust being code word for magic. And in that sense, like our time in the womb, we're floating about. We are in a highly programmable state. Our mum is the periscope, basically saying, life is safe, life isn't safe, right? And how she perceives life around her and how she perceives herself is the baseline emotions we take on as who we are. So, when we're looking at, it's quite cerebral to get into this persecutor, victim, rescuer thing, but it's a way we look to identify and see a bit more about our psyche. But if we get rather cosmic with this and go, we're all souls at different stages of development. We're here on planet Earth. There is a massive emotional mental detox going on for all of humanity that has to be purged. We are making a choice between whether we want to co-create paradise on Earth by no longer choosing to be victims, or whether we are all going to our deaths as sheeples, going over the edge, like doing what we're told because we're terrified, right? And both are coexisting. So this is duality, we know it. Then we can look again at duality and say, well, duality in itself creates separation. We need to create some unified field around it. But we do need contrast. We do need to define things, which is where polarity comes in. But at the same time, we can get really semantic about that. And it's like, we need to be able to understand ourselves as separate to also be able to identify as whole. And if we all started in the ocean of love, totally unaware that we have our own divine essence, and we separate from source and then go through this whole separation journey for however many lifetimes we do, till we get to the point that we're conscious enough to have this conversation, we're then like, right, I want to reunify with that oneness, but whilst also knowing that I'm an individual droplet in this ocean, right? And I feel like the most important thing is we're all awakening to this, because we're talking about thousands and thousands of years of survival programming being passed from one generation to another. And we make the ego bad, right? Which I love my ego, actually, very much. I'm very grateful to my ego for helping me survive really challenging things in my perception, because I'm a very sensitive soul, but someone else would be like, whatever, but to me that was that. And it's like the ego is there to kick in the survival programming. Unfortunately, the survival programming is so prevalent because of what's around us, because we've been so focused on it, that until we make a choice to move out of adrenaline into oxytocin as our baseline existence, right, we are going to keep creating this. And at the moment, it's critical alert, because this is how we kill ourselves. It's how we kill all of humanity, or those who want to stay in that, because the you know, if we're going to be blunt, and I like being blunt at times, I'm premenstrual as well, by the way, so there'll be quite a lot of sweating. It's like, you know, if you feel this is going to kill you, it's going to fucking kill you, all right? That's that simple, right? You'd be lucky to survive it, because that's what your energy is saying and creating. But out of that is also the fact that we're coming to a place where we're going, if I want to be autonomous, if I want to take responsibility, then I need to embody the qualities of compassion, tremendous sense of humor, tremendous humility for the fact that, oh my God, here I am doing the same thing again. I thought I got past it, and here it is showing up in a different form. So we override it by constantly repeating new positive patterns, as you know, as Chris is talking about, and just living out the new way that we see things. But for it to really shift, it's how we shift our perception of something. As you said, Chris, you know, are we victims? Are we not? And it's just like, no, I'm going to look for the silver lining and empower myself. If I am taking my programming from my mother's perception of herself and the world, and that's what she did, and that's what her mother did, there is no blame. This is just the mess in the room. We don't need to blame either ourselves or the others for creating it. Let's just clean it up. And from this horrible shittiness, what do we want to create? It's the springboard that says, I want this instead. What is that like? And that is where the innocence of childlike is imagination, which is what we've totally lost, pineal gland, all the rest of it, allows us to get beyond the victim. But there's always going to be a bit of us that needs comforting. As you said, that separation of going from being completely contained, whether it's a nice space or not, we don't know, we're just absorbing. And we have contrast out in the world that says, oh, that was a bit, you know, you're anxious all the time. That's your normal. You're scared all the time. That's your normal. And how we repattern it is what we're all talking about. But I don't believe we can do it with our minds. It's that surrender to the heart and basically going to everything.
Boom, again.
Couldn't agree more. Well said.
Well said.
Can I just clarify a couple of things? The metaphor of the mother and the separation, very crude. You're absolutely right. I'm a big fan of Gabor Mate. I know all sorts of things can happen in the womb. I really was just using it as a metaphor for the true thing, which is separation from the one. So when the soul forgets itself, that's really what I was talking about. You're absolutely right on that. I don't make the ego bad. I just have to say that the ego doesn't exist. What we call ego is just identification with thoughts, emotions, sensations, and perceptions. Consciousness is pure. It's not objects of consciousness. Thoughts, emotions, sensations, perceptions are what we think we are. That's the ego. It's the belief that we are objects of consciousness. We are the witness. We are the subject. We are the awareness. So ego doesn't really exist, but I don't make it bad. It just dissolves when you remember who you really are. When you remember that you're consciousness, there's no ego. So ego's no problem. It's just when you think you are your thoughts and emotions, you act in egoic ways. So I don't make the ego bad. It doesn't exist. I just wanted to say that.
I agree. And I think it's a three, like when I talk about being multidimensional, right, I'm talking, for me, that helps me understand there's a third dimensional world that's fear-based, right, which is kind of what we're talking about. If we look at the brain even, and we say you've got your reptilian, you've got your limbic, you've got your neocortex, right? So you've got...
no, we're not going to talk about reptilians.
Let's talk about reptilians.
Well, let's just go to the brain first, and you can go reptile. But the fact that there is an instinct within us that is there for us to basically get out of the way of true and impending danger, that's what I would call the ego, right? That's what I identify as the ego, right?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Can I say something on that?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So absolutely right. The survival instinct, as you pointed out, it's built into the body. It's good. But it was built for physical danger, to protect the body. What's happened is the ego, the identification with thoughts, has hijacked the survival instinct, and now it's to protect itself. So basically, our fears are almost all psychological and emotional. I don't want to feel upset. I don't want to be triggered. I don't want to feel humiliated. I don't want to feel lonely. I don't want to feel unloved. They're all meaningless. That fear of the ego is what causes all of our suffering. There's nothing to be afraid of for the ego because it doesn't exist, but it's hijacked the consciousness and the survival instinct of the body to protect itself. Yeah. It's a phantom. It's a phantom. In this practice, you let go of all the ego's fears because it doesn't exist. You don't need protecting. You're a divine being. You don't need protecting. Only the ego thinks it needs protecting and needs to survive. So I would say that it's hijacked the good survival instinct, which is there to protect the body for its own nefarious plans, even though it's not bad.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love the way you've said it, because it's kind of like that kind of takes us into the mind and a sort of mystical 4D and all these things we create that aren't really real. But when I go back to Tara's original question about, you know, here we are, we're all right in our lives, right? You know, I did a post the other day about, can you have a shitty day in paradise? And it's like, everything's okay. I don't need anything. No one's in danger right now, right? I'm happy. I'm married. I've got this great relationship, a house, everything's lovely, kids okay. There's that sort of like, something's going to go wrong, something's going to go wrong, something's going to go wrong, right? And, you know, there is that physical, this thing that you're talking about, which is all imagined, has come from that original, like, shit, the saber-toothed tiger, right? Is coming and it's going to get us. And it's like, now, how do we pacify that? And how do we allow ourselves to go, oh, it's okay that this has come up? Because, as my osteopath said, your modern brain can talk to that part and go, really, it's okay to just enjoy. But if you have stories in your ancestry, in your bloodline, in your soul consciousness, which we all do because we don't go from unified to separate to then whole again, without having a story or two of struggle and suffering, right? And you're like, oh, but, you know, last time I was really happy and all things were good. The rug got pulled from under my feet and this happened and that happened. And I bang on about the fact that my great granddad was, on my maternal side, he was a manager for a bank in Smyrna, which southern part of Turkey, was a Greek colony. And basically, when the Turks invaded, he was beheaded. He was beheaded, and my great grandmother fled for her life when she was pregnant with my maternal grandmother. And, you know, my maternal grandmother, my mum, me, we're like, you know, our baseline is anything could happen, right? And it's been, you know, when we think about the Holy Grail, we think about the things we want, what you said at the start, you know, what you want and the things that you go for aren't necessarily what are going to make you feel whole and oneness, but you're going to go towards them. And as you go towards them, you will encounter whatever happens to help you reorientate towards your true goal, because all paths lead to Rome, right? And it's like, however you go, but you need that Holy Grail. For some people, it's the relationship. For others, it's money. For others, it's a baby. For others, it's, you know, success in being a celebrity. But as you go towards it, you realize it's never going to give you what you want. And it's that integration inside that's like, oh, I am responsible for being my mother. I am responsible for being my father. I am responsible for nurturing the creativity that I'm blaming other people for taking away because I don't have the time to do. And when you realize how powerful you are, as I know I'm preaching to the choir, it's just like, oh, wow, I better really, really like pay attention to those things I'm creating because it's all energy and it's always attracting.
You is wise. You is very wise. I
You
like
are
that. I like
both
that a
of
lot.
you. I
Very
love
wise. And I'll just say one thing on the, because I think the question in there was, when the I'm afraid of thing comes up, that might be ancestral, it might be whatever, how do we pacify that? What I would say is, we don't need to pacify it. Fear will always come up, whether it's ancestral or in this life, or if you have a perfect husband, everything's fine. Fear is always going to come up. It's just a thing in the universe. The point is that fear is a cloud and you are the sky. You're not standing on the ground. It has no bearing on you as you really are. You are God, basically, and nothing touches you when you know who you really are. So it's all about identity. It's all about identity. And any true practice, all it is practicing for a little bit, a lot a day, being the witness. Because then the fear can come up and you go, oh, there's fear. Hi, fear. There's pain, there's shame, there's guilt. Hi. And that's it. You don't have to do anything with any of it. You don't have to do anything with the witness, with the ego. You don't have to do anything with the fear. You just have to know who you are and abide there. And if you abide in your center, in your source, fear, ancestral, this, that, and the other, they can do what they want.
Guys, now take this, everything you have said, and plop it into the context of what we've been dealing with for the last 10 months, where people are not knowing what to believe in. They've got one group of people saying this is the truth and this is what's going to happen in the world, and then there's another group of people saying no, this is actually what's happening. We're going 3D, we're going 5D, we're going 4D, there's whatever else is going on. Or we're all, you know, there's a terrible plague and lots of people are sick and you've got to have their medicine to, you know, or not have it because that also might hurt you. And you see what I mean? It's like when you take, we can take this, which sounds really like, oh yeah, I get that, I can do that. And then plop it into the global situation that most people are struggling with right now.
Mm-hmm.
How does that factor? What does that look like?
Rosie first, because I want to then look like the smarter one by coming after her. Because she's done it to me twice now.
I've got a very limited thing to say on this, which is simply like, from the perspective I see the world, everything's coexisting at the same time. So all realities are different timelines, you know, like different movies we watch, whatever we bring our attention to, we energize. The more we energize it, it goes from thought form to plasma to physical reality. And we've got a lot of different agendas. If we want to go ET about this, let's say there's 22 different extraterrestrial experiments going on this planet right now. We're all being fucked with, sorry for swearing, right? And it's like,
Don't apologize, you're allowed.
But when it comes to it from a physiological and epigenetic perspective, you know, we have the fact that we know fear will attack the immune system. It will make us way more vulnerable to anything, whether it's man-made or whether it's come from nature. The more we attribute that it's got power over us, same as the victim thing again, we need a rescuer, we need to blame someone, exactly what you said at the start, Tara. So where do we go with this? Well, isn't it interesting that you have these different factors? You've got the mainstream media, you've then got the alternate media, you've then got quite a lot of different beings, entities, as having all these different ideas, but most of them are creating fear. There aren't a lot of people on either side that are actually going, you know what, this is all right. It's okay, let's find that place under this, because, you know, you've got the anti-vaxxers and, you know, I'm not into this as a solution at all. There is this possibility. It's one model of, I wouldn't call it healthcare, but one model of public health. Is it the only? No. You know, are we being denied much more advanced technologies and medicines? Yes. Is there, you know, an agenda? I would say, yeah, it's all happening, right? But where are we creating calm? Where are we coming back to what Chris said and coming back to the center and going, you can take all of this and none of it matters, because it's all just there to rattle your cage until you come back to your center, unplug from it all and go, the only thing that is really important here is that I connect to source and I channel it through my body, because I'm an acupuncture needle of love light and I'm here and I don't have to worry about how it's going to play out. I'm just going to channel that light through the grid and everybody is going to pick it up who wants to, and we're going to bring more light to this planet, and then the shadow disappears. How it plays out, I've no idea, right? But it all has to, because if we don't want to keep recreating the past, we have to shake it out like animals do, the true terror that's been going on for thousands, millions of years, and go, no, we're no longer a prison planet. You are no longer siphoning off my energy to do what you want within the Star Wars era. It's Star bloody peace now, and we are creating it because there's enough of us who have realized we are co-creators of our reality, and we're not going to play anymore that game. We're game makers, and that's why we're here. Over to you, Chris.
What she said. I will add some other stuff, because otherwise there's no point in having me here. You might as well just have Rosie.
No, there is. We can just look at you and enjoy your face.
Oh, that's lovely. No, yes, spot on. Absolutely spot on. You know, when I started my show, I called it The End Times Nation, an oasis of sanity in an insane world. And I started it because of exactly what Rosie said. It's like everybody's either, oh my God, it's the cabal doing this, fear. Oh my God, COVID's going to kill us all, fear. Both sides are just based on fear. So I started the show to say, no. You don't have to be afraid. Just come back to your center, come back to source, blah, blah, blah. So I wanted to be one of the few people not coming from a fear-based place. A year ago, before any of this started, most of my Facebook posts were, fear is the mind killer. Fear is the problem. We're so afraid, but we don't admit it. This is going to be our downfall. don't be afraid, love, be happy. That's what all of my Facebook was about. And then COVID happened. And it's interesting from my point of view is that it's been like an experiment in fear, which is my #1 favorite subject, because fear is the absence of love and love is my favorite subject. So I love the both of them. And it's like an experiment in fear. So what I noticed is that lots of people that you probably know as well from the old countercultural alternative festival scene, who, you know, seemed very enlightened and had a lot of countercultural views, a large group of those, particularly the ones that also feel leftist in their politics, were full-on coronaphobics. They absolutely bought into, this is a terrible thing, and these are people who never believe the mainstream media, and all of a sudden they believe in the mainstream media. Who never supported government, and all of a sudden they're supporting the government. It really shook me, and it took me a while to figure it out. But these really super alternative, super countercultural people going along with the mainstream media and the man, and I was like, what the hell's going on? And then I realized what it was. It's like unowned fear. It's like you go with the coronaphobe, the sort of what you would call the herd. You know, the mainstream position, the herd position is the safest. You know, if you don't know anything, if you've never done any research, you're going to go where most people go, because that's natural, and because you don't know any better. And so if you have unowned, we all have fear. So, as I said before, we all have it. But if you don't acknowledge it, if you tell yourself you're not afraid, then you have a lot of unowned fear. And that's what it is about those people who are countercultural, unowned fear. So when a big fear source comes in from the outside, they completely leave their whatever it was that they stated they were about, not about, they were about independence and alternative and they went straight to the herd because the fear was unowned. On the other side, you've got the people who've always been countercultural and maybe were a bit more aware of their fear because they knew what's going on in the world, maybe. And so those people were like, oh, this is a con straight away. However, on that side, the fear is, oh my God, the world's going to end because the cabal are going to do this and that. No. And so, their fear plays out slightly differently, but it's still fear. And it doesn't help. You've always got to ask yourself what helps, and that's why the point you made is like nobody's coming from a place of calm, peace, love, center. That's what helps.
I wouldn't say nobody, but certainly more people need to.
No, sorry, I beg your pardon. Yeah, the majority of people aren't coming from that place, and I take it we are. That's why we're having this.
And reaching for something to rescue too, isn't it? There's a lot of reaching, whether it's the latest video that's come out from a certain person who shares on information. Can't wait for that next video. And people are like, I'm noticing really kind of codependent relationships more than ever with certain people who give information and like spoon feeding and those being fed. And it's like this, it's like, what would I do without you spoon feeding me this information and keeping me sane? And I'm like, hold on a minute, there's something wrong there for me. I'll speak personally, there's something wrong there for me. Or this person comes into power, everything's going to be okay. Oh, that person doesn't come into power, everything's not going to be okay. Or vice versa, depending on which side you're looking. Maybe it's the Pleiadians are going to come and rescue us. Maybe it's people that we would, and I love Pleiadians, and I'm not making any of it wrong. I'm not saying any of it's wrong. I'm just saying, I know when I notice it, I'm going, this doesn't feel right. And that's exactly what you were saying, Rosie. And I watched this wonderful woman the other day, Dolores Cahill.
She's amazing.
She is just so cool. And I also watched another video as well. Not that I'd watched that many videos, to be honest, but it just so happened in the last few days. And I saw Robert Kennedy speaking as well. And both of these people were really sound. And Dolores Cahill was talking about how she travels constantly and doesn't wear a mask, for instance, because she has no fear over anybody telling her what she should or shouldn't do. She has no fear of any repercussion if she doesn't do as she's told. because she knows who she is and she knows her rights.
That's the point. I think that you're talking something really important there, Tara, which is she knows how to speak the language of the old world, the language of the soul, let's say, the language of being sovereign. Whereas most of us are programmed into the language of the land, the human law, which is BS, until, you know, we believe it's real until we realize it's BS. So, you know.
And it's based on, isn't it based on there being a perpetrator, somebody who's going to hurt you if you don't do as you're told because you're the victim. And then we're also going to rope like another entity into it, like God. If we're going to, you know, come under this umbrella.
But you've got to give your power away. You've got to give your power away. You've got, you don't know good. You don't know yourself.
Exactly. Your power either goes to some supreme source, like some kind of deity, some kind of entity, whether it's Luciferian or God, because that's, a lot of people have also been talking about the battle, haven't they? The battle of between light and dark, and you're going to give your power to God, and will God win? Or are you going to give your power to Lucifer? And, you know, it's all meshed in. It's like everything is so rich with all these different layers right now, isn't it? All this big, wonderful minestrone of everything. And I'm just like, when I look at that and I listen to people, I'm really acutely noticing where it's like, yeah, that power. Okay, so you think that's going to rescue you, or that's going to rescue you? You think you can blame this one or that one, and it's okay because you're on this side and not that side, but it's not. It's still blaming. It's still waiting to be rescued. Still waiting for somebody to come along and change the laws or change the financial system or decide that we can all go out of our houses now, you know, or we don't have to wear those horrible face nappies anymore. We can tell that we're waiting for somebody to tell us that exactly we can have our power back. And that's not true, is it? Well, that's what we're saying. It's like, it's not actually true. That's coming from a really deep old programming where we've gone round that cycle so many times and it's been so deeply ingrained in us. It's like, yeah, evolving out of this pattern.
I feel like what you're saying, it's like absolutely the evolving out of the pattern is actually that, like, when I heard the same talk, right, and I was like, God, I want to know what to say. I want to know I can get it right, because, you know, I've claimed my fictitious nature. I've done all the bits online that you need to, and got to pay for the car. But it's like, if a copper turned up, I'd probably just forget and go into that shock fear place where you forget everything. And it's like, people, in order to feel safe to do something different, need to practice doing that different, to know that they're not on their own with it, because they're so scared they're going to be excluded from the crowd. And it's like, no, there's a whole other crowd. So again, you look, it's like there's 3D, 4D, 5D. So many of us have been building there's 3D, 4D bridges being built, 4D, 5D bridges being built. Those who can conceive of paradise are creating that reality. And we're all playing this game of come up, let me show you, right? But we need to help each other to understand that things can be different. And right here, you're too in shock and fear to believe that is even possible. It's too far away. But if we can build the steps, all the different languages, the ways we share it, it's the same thing we're saying. We're just using different language to create that space between the reaction of fear that makes us compliant, that is the propaganda that then we feed into, to actually go, oh yeah, the thing I'm waiting for someone else to give me is right in here already. Oh, the ultimate spiritual teaching we all know about, right? And how can I master it? Well, in this physical reality, I am going to need to learn my soul language, the language of being sovereign, in order for me to exist and not be of it. And that's the invitation that we're all doing with different colors and glitter and stuff to invite the lure. Yeah, it's cosmic sales.
So much good stuff, and I'm like, I want to talk about that, I want to talk about that, but yes to everything, what she said, what you said. On the Dolores Cahill thing, yeah, she's a legend. And on the common law and the maritime law and all that. And I think she said this herself, it's like, yes, you can try and learn, you know, don't say yes when a policeman says, do you understand? And there are some simple things, but that's much harder learning it at that level, which is quite superficial, of changing your language, than what you were saying about the sovereign, the original language. So to me, it's like, so I'll give my example. When I lived under a tree in the park, when I used to go on the tube, I felt like an outlaw because I was living under a tree in a park selling the biggest shoe, and I was an outlaw. And so I just refused to pay on the tube. And so I used to practice invisibility. And I know that somebody's going to say, oh, I did that too. Because every time I tell this story, people say they've done it too. I used to do invisibility, and I just used to walk behind people through the barriers. And I've done it right in front of policemen, like right in front. Like at Brixton, they always used to have tons of police arresting people. And I've done it right in front of them multiple times. And that was when I was in that state of surrender. And to me, that's why I keep going on about surrender. Surrender is the shortcut to the fourth dimensional, learning all these ways, because there's a part of you that knows what to say to the policeman. There's a part of you that knows exactly how to come from the non-victim place, the non-savior, and everything you were saying about the savior thing. Whether it's Jesus' second coming, the angels, science and technology, vaccines, it's all savior. It's all power outside of self. There is no outer authority. That's a simple way I put it. There is only one authority, and that is the source within. So any desire for anything outside yourself to save you is part of the lack of knowing who you are. And that who you are is all you need. It's all you need. And that's why if you can surrender to that and not be identified with your beliefs and ancestry and emotions and whatever it is, and you can do it in any moment. It's not, you don't have to be enlightened to do it. It's just each moment that I teach a practice, it's called making a home in the breath. And you just, in between the out breath and the in breath, that null point, it's there. Peace and eternity and love and everything you want, it's just there. And I just do that all the time. And that's what I tell them, just do that all the time. And that is surrender. And in there, I would call it God. You can call it spirit. You can call it the mother. You can call it whatever you want. It doesn't give a shit what you call it. It comes up and it just speaks through your mouth, looks through your eyes, knows what to do. It's like, you're not the doer. I'm not the doer anyway. This is the doer. And the more you just relax and stop trying, the more it takes over. And that's how to do it. It's like you're not doing it, you're letting it be done.
Absolutely. Hallelujah. I think we sing from the same hymn sheet there. I'm always saying to people, or just, you're being breathed. You're not doing life. Life is doing you.
Exactly.
But we get so confused. We think we have to do life and make everything and do everything right and take responsibility, which we still do. Responsibility of receiving the gift that we've been given on our birthdays and going, oh gosh, I'm mine. How am I going to look after and love and enjoy this me? But it's really just surrendering and receiving what we're being given and going, oh, something else knows more than me. Something that's been breathing life onto this planet for literally billions of years knows something about where I need to be and how I evolve and what's best for me, way more than I can compute up here in my little head, or what script I can learn, or what positive affirmation I can learn, or whatever, or what I can stick in my arm that I think is going to sort out all the problems. It really is, isn't it? Just soften into that breath and be breathed. And through that as well, for me, that's the beginning of the unraveling of the conditioning. Because you guys are talking about in the womb and in the soul, and you're talking about ego, Chris. And I'm like, I literally see these inside people. And the ego to me looks like a little chip. Like if you could have like one of those memory storage things that you plug into your, with a USB that you plug into your computer and you upload a program. So now your computer can do this program. That's how I see the ego. And it goes into the left hemisphere of the brain, round about here, above the ear. And it just goes in there, clunk. And I don't know why, but I see it in blue. It's like an electric blue color, maybe, I don't know. And it's like, then it just installs into the brain and into the mainframe and into your hard drive and into every single system inside your body that you are separate. And once you take that out and the program of separation is erased, people trying to take their ego away or get rid of the ego, then it's like, well, you'll just go back to source and you'll just be light and you won't have a self. You won't have an identity.
Innocent. That's the childlike state. Even though children have egos, it's innocence. It's like you're not thinking about you being the doer. It's just being done. That's why kids skip. I love watching kids skipping along the street.
I was doing that the other day.
Oh yeah, my body can do this. It's like, I call it divine puppet. It's like, it's that great feeling when you're not the one. There used to be this really big hill on my bike, and when I tried to ride up the hill, I couldn't do it. I used to have to get off the bike and push it. And then one day I just said, okay, I'm just going to let life do it. I know I'm not the one riding the bike. Life is riding the bike through me. So I'm just going to let life do it. And I just went up to the top, no problem. And it's like, I do the washing up that way. Just let it be done. And rather than thinking you're doing it, it's easier. A lot less stress, a lot less effort, a lot less pain. And it gets done more efficiently as well.
Absolutely.
You're just talking about receiving, really, because Tara, when you said, you just forget, you just go back into the oneness and you're just the oneness. That's what terrifies people. That terrifies right? Whether that's my ego or whatever, because my original fear was of dying as a 4-year-old. I was terrified of dying, the idea of being nothing. And my family would tell me about Jesus Christ and that you go to heaven. But I didn't trust these adults anyway. I didn't feel they could keep me safe. So whatever they were telling me was not right? And it was that fear of landing in an empty hole, an abyss, which, maybe we understand that as purgatory, somewhere in the 4th dimension, part of our soul's growth, whatever it is, but I remember it. And that's what I thought not having an identity was, right? And it's like, well, if our higher self is the us, that the soul consciousness that already has what we want, and is helping us to create that as a vibration. It might not look the same on the surface, but as a vibration, it already has that, and it's teaching us how to align with it. And if our surrender within is, because we've got all this conflict about surrendering to a higher power, surrendering to God, or it's there in the external authority things. Well, no, you're surrendering to the you that already has what you want. You're surrendering to that one unified field that you belong to, but you also like knowing you're separate from it. Like the yin yang has that form. It's never either or, it's and this and more. I mean, I'm full of cliches because they're just they plug you back in to what I would call the sphere of compassion, which we can call the field, where everything is coexisting, but we can't do it. We need to be it for it to come to us. And we're all saying that in different ways. That can we then, this was the thing for me, was I was resisting the very thing I wanted because I was scared of being annihilated, again, because of how we misunderstand ego, form, whatever. And so much of fear, and with, fearless, empowered and free to be me is my course, right? That's what I kind of teach people. So being fearless is what I'm all about. I'm still terrified of snakes. No one near me, like that, if it's around my neck, I know it's there, that's fine. But if I'm going to tread on it out, you're not seeing me in Costa Rica, love, because by me, right? And that's the truth, is like, we're wounded healers. We're aware of the fallibility. We get the oneness, and we still trip up every day. When we, if in doubt, breathe out, let ourselves be breathed. We remember again. How often do you find people say to you, I just want to be calm in my mind? And then they're calm in their mind and they immediately feel that something's wrong, right? Do you see that resistance is always there? And it's like, okay, that's going to be your new normal. How does that feel? And that's where I think people do, we long to be prepared a bit. Have you read ET 101? Have either of you read ET 101?
I read it when I was in the park, or just before I went into the park. Love that book.
The best book, right? Like, hilarious. Like, I've read it twice in my life, again, once before and after this shift, but it's all there.
Yeah.
Like, we just want a little reminder, and then we can deal with all the mysticism and curiosity on the way.
So I'm just checking in with our audience. Guys, what are you thinking of these two? We've got a few comments here. I only get to see the last 4. But Sonia is saying, I'm appreciating all of your insights. And then somebody else whose name's just disappeared said, I'm really loving this. Are you following us? This is incredible. So the last point was about coming, I think that I heard coming back into that place, surrendering, receiving, being in that, just that being that you were talking about, Rosie. And then there's the, okay, and now you've got to go to the supermarket and you've got to put your mask on. Or somebody in your, you know what I mean? How quickly it can pull you out. Or how it's a bank balance thing. Or it's a partner thing. Or it's something that's going to pull you out of that place, because the state of the world, and you described it like your baseline is that fear. Your grandfather getting his head cut off. I literally see this with people, and it goes back generations, by the way. It's not just one generation to your parents or your grandparents. It's the great grandparents, the great, and it goes on and on and on and on. And this, I just want to put this in quickly, guys. It's been mentioned here tonight, and it's something that's been with me the last day or two. How people say all the time, if you don't focus on it, it will just disappear and stop existing. And I have to say, from my experience, like, because what you focus on becomes real. So don't focus on your pain. Don't focus on something that you don't like. Don't focus on any trauma in the past. And this is what you were talking about, Chris, right? Because then you will just bring it up again and make it real. And if you don't put your consciousness on it, it will disappear. And I have to say, guys, that is one of the biggest spiritual bullshits that's going out there. And it's actually really the opposite.
It's denial.
So if you believe that, and there's something where you're going, okay, I'm afraid of death, so I'm just going to do everything I can, for example, to go and inoculate myself, or to protect myself, or whatever I'm having to do, because I don't want to face my fear of death. And you think that fear is going to go away. Or you think a trauma that happened to you in your childhood is going to go away if you don't talk about it. It's actually not true. These things get passed from generation to generation to generation to generation, and it keeps going indefinitely until it meets an edge. It's like you create a sound in the universe, ding, and it will keep rippling and rippling and rippling, affecting everything in its path until it meets an edge where something meets it and says, okay, I'm going to meet you at that frequency. And then it cancels it out. Right? You can put walls in the way. You can put obstacles in the way. You can all kinds of things. And it's not going to happen, because what's hidden in the dark, what's left in the unconscious or the subconscious, what's been tried to be buried on this planet for thousands and thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of years, or including our history, that I believe at some point is going to be revealed in the next few years for the masses, about where we actually come from, where we are seeded from, that we are more than, this little quarantine on a planet Earth. I believe that's all going to come out. But but we're only going to know this when we have the eyes and the breath and the surrender and that connection to that source, to that truth, to go, I'm going to take this, I'm going to be in that energy, and I'm going to go to that which terrifies me, that which I don't want to look at, my past, my history. I don't want to look at the traumas on this earth. I just want to, live in 5D. It's like, hold on a minute. You have to go there, and with full source consciousness, full self-consciousness, full unconditional love, presence, compassion, or all the words that you want to call it, and meet it exactly where it is without trying to change it. And if we could all do that for ourselves, because it's a big ask to go and do that for the rest of the world and all the other people suffering. And that's why a lot of people are actually sick in the first place, is not because they're a rogue bacteria or viruses. It's because we're all overloaded with carrying so many other people's, like absorbing their energy field, absorbing their toxic thoughts, absorbing their emotions and their trauma. Like that little drop in the ocean, we're feeling everybody's trying to carry it for everybody, like you guys were saying, taking on that responsibility, and then going, well, let me heal the world, let me rescue others, because that's how I'm going to save myself or save the world. And it's not. It's really not, is it? It's like, hold on, what if each and every single one of us could face our own stuff, clean up our own gardens, like you say, clean our own yards, clean our own houses, no matter who dumped it on us, and actually just meet everything in ourselves that's dark or scared, in that fear that Chris was talking about, your worst fears, and meet that with your presence and your unconditional love. And what would happen if loads and loads and loads and loads of people suddenly started doing that?
It would be amazing. And I wanted to just offer that, I think, again, this is a semantic thing, that people think that if they go into it and they look at it, they're going to make it bigger and it's going to grow. It's this misunderstanding, right? And it's like, don't go looking for trouble, because if you look for trouble, you will, there's always something to fix. If you have an intention, what is misaligned with that, what is not resonating with that, whatever your stories are that are in conflict, are going to come up. So that's what you meet with love, with the tools you've got, right? And if you think of what Boris said about, we must suppress this virus, I'm like, oh. A wounded masculine speaking from a place of utter terror and needing to control. And if you think about it, again, it's not about judgment, but are the people that are the political leaders and the decision makers, whether they're in the forefront and they're in the background, Illuminati, are these the evolved souls that are running this planet, or are we dealing with the lowest common denominator of consciousness really running the show, right? And it's down to, again, what we're feeding in ourselves. So what Chris said about it's all a mirror, we're all seeing this now, and we do need to take responsibility for being our own second coming, our own savior. That's what we're learning. It's the simplest thing.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
Hallelujah.
That's it. You carry on, Chris.
Sorry.
Take over, please.
You did it again, Rosie. You said exactly what I was going to say. I love it. Yeah. So let's just put that stupid. If I look at it, it's going to get worse. I won't look at it, to bed. What you resist persists. What you witness disappears. It's the complete opposite. It's the complete opposite. What you focus on doesn't grow. What you witness disappears. What you deny carries on and grows. What you resist,
like a festering tumor or a mold.
Exactly. And the price of denial is pain. The price of denial is pain. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. The counterculturals who've gone with the coronaphobia. That's exactly what they've done. I'm not going to look at the conspiracy theorists who are talking about this all stuff. And the price of that denial, they're the ones who get corona. It's honestly what the other thing I noticed was I don't know anybody close to me that has got it or and nobody does really. But the people who I keep seeing posts, my dad got it, I got it, are the people who believe it. It's the people who are most afraid of it. They get it for obvious reasons. We know about the immune system, we know about stress, and we know blah blah blah. But the other thing,
pneumonia.
Oh God. But the other thing that really good point that you made when you were talking about Rosie, you were talking about the bzzz and the grandfather, and then you were talking about I'm all at peace, and then I have to put my mask on when I go to the shop, and stuff comes up. So this is the beauty of it, and this is that there's a simple reframe that is really helpful practically for people with that. It's that when something comes up, whether it's again ancestral or today or childhood. When I used to teach people, when I used to do my poetry workshop, and it was a workshop for expressing yourself and stuff like that, and lots of people don't like public speaking, lots of people are nervous. There's a nice little performance trick I used to tell them, which is in line with what I'm about to tell you. And you'd say to people, when people said they're nervous, too nervous to speak, you say to them, nerves are just sublimated excitement. If you just relabel that feeling that you call nerves, if you just call it excitement, see what happens. And it works every time. When you think it's nerves and when you call it nerves, it paralyzes you. When you call it excitement, it empowers you. But it's the same energy. It's the same energy. So in terms of when triggers come up, if you see it as, oh, good, some of my old stuff is coming up for healing. So yeah, you're at peace, you're all good. Something comes up. It's not looking at it as, oh no, I've lost my peace. It's, oh great, an opportunity for learning. Just reframe it. Just understand that everything that happens through you, not to you. And everything that happens for your good. If you stop thinking anything is bad, you will not have badness in your life, because everything is a gift. In our tradition, God does not give questionable gifts. I know you guys don't like God. That's fine.
I love God. I was just saying.
Okay, well, there you go. God does not give questionable gifts. Everything is a gift from God. Me losing my leg, a friend of mine who was raped. If you can actually understand that everything is being created by your higher self, soul, whatever you want to call it, to remind you of who you really are. Everything. That's the only reason we're here, is the journey of God, forgetting it's God, so it can have the fun of remembering it over thousands of lifetimes, as Rosie said. That's it. We're just having a million lifetime adventure. Imagine that. You're God, and the only thing in life is to remember that you're God. Like the end point is the best thing you could ever imagine. So if you start that way now, you will just have fun till you remember. Everything will be fun. That is the secret of masters. Enjoy everything.
Yeah.
That's what Jesus was doing on the cross. He was enjoying being crucified. And I'm not joking. That was his practice. That is the practice of a master. I can enjoy being crucified and love my crucifiers because I know who I really am.
Bang on, bang on. And it's, you know, you talk to me, you're talking about grace. And, you know, I didn't know I was channeling grace for a very, very long time. It was just this soft pink flame, and there were all these others, colors, things that had come ahead of time. And you know, when time isn't linear and you're learning that, but then you really learn it, and these clues were planted. I think there was Sophie's Choice, or Sophie's World was probably, I think it was Sophie's Choice. It was a book about philosophy that I read when I was 17 that planted that seed, that there was, our consciousness was talking back to us. And it's like, we are God, exactly what you just said, Chris. And if we as souls chose our soul curriculum, which I truly believe we're saying the same thing here, that nothing is by accident, everything is a blessing. However, in Anusara, grace means to flow with the power of revelation. The moment where you see something and you're like, I get it, and suddenly you're freed from that bind. Christian terms, it's the gifts freely given, whether you're deserving or not. And from a perspective, from my teacher's point of view, it's being able to let go easily of what no longer serves us. So, you know, if something is still like a dog with a bone in us, it's still serving us because we're learning from it, right? And if we lose our cool the moment we come out of our Zen space, you know, I am a bit of a recluse, by the way. I'm very calm in my home. When I get out, I'm a bit of a wild one. And it's like, oh, I get triggered. Oh, okay, yeah. We're all ascended masters in training. We're all learning how to be this, and not to expect to be perfect, not to expect that we reach enlightenment when we're mung bean eating hippies. No offense to that, but, you know, like, smoke, drink, whatever else you do, that doesn't stop you being worthy of love and all the things that you want in your life. There is nothing that stops you accessing this except you and your belief that says you can't have it because you're not perfect. Oh, fuck.
Amen. Amen.
Right? It's not true. It's right here. We are here. We are here. We are the beam me up Scotty. We are the extraterrestrial. We are the priest. We are all the things in between. Idea that there's like 144,000, you know, you hear about the 144,000, you know, light bearers, but say there's 144,000 facets to the masculine element and 144,000 aspects to the feminine element in terms of our soul knowing itself and its full integration of diamond light body, whatever you want to call it. So like, well, there's a lot of different bits of us to get to know, right? And we're not going to get to know them all in this lifetime. So whatever my agenda is, whatever I've come here to grow as my soul consciousness, to understand the other side of this, we start to move beyond karma, don't we? Because we stop the cause and effect, and we're like, oh, okay, I'm just learning more. I'm learning how to the other side of this. You know, if you even think about what we recreate, I came from a broken home. I couldn't understand how my dad would leave. And then I create a situation in my own life where I ask the dad of my child to leave so I can understand it. But there's all, you know, we do it all the time within real time of this life, but also between lives. So infinite patience. And
Yeah,
that's it.
Here.
absolutely. You say so much in one breath. Take a breath and you go, it's like,
It's coming on. Like,
absolutely brilliant. Bang, 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 bang. Hitting all the buttons, guys.
It's an inspiring conversation. It really is. I mean, I don't often have this experience of I'm hearing so many things that I like and agree with and have another angle on. And you know, and I just have to keep up. I have to try and remember this bit I want to say about something. It's great. I love it.
Same. Try having a conversation with Sasha Stone and keeping up with him. That's that's like quite a thing. No, but you guys, honestly, amazing. So from that place, ending of karma, not repeating the same things. Do we need rescued? Do we need rescued? Whether it's by a certain president or a certain financial system or a certain alien race or a certain, you know, corporation, do we?
Can I? So the perception that anything is broken, we are broken, we need fixing, that's the problem. It's always about the belief and the perception, as we just said. If you are God, the whole game is, oh, I'm going to have these beliefs of separation, that I'm not God, and that I can be damaged, hurt, lost, die, blah, 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 blah. So I'm going to have all of these beliefs to make the game fun. It's like a thriller is only good if it looks like the hero's going to get killed, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wouldn't be any fun if we didn't have these wrong perceptions. So it's okay to have them. It's no problem having them. But if you ask the question, nothing is broken. And so that we definitely don't need saving. We definitely don't need rescuing. We just need to be there. We just need to be present to it. Just be there and see what happens. Because again, you're not the one living life. Life is living you. So if you can be there and allow life to be there, looking through your eyes and having your unique gifts and talents, you know, each body mind has a unique genetic and biological and physiological gift. So what life wants is for you to be where you're supposed to be, but really be there, to watch, observe, use your senses, take in the information, and then allow it. Allow it, bruv. That's what they say in South London. It's a deeply spiritual saying. Allow it, bruv. Allow it.
My sons say that.
It's
They're
true.
always saying, allow it, mum.
Allow it, bruv.
Allow it,
That's brilliant.
My kids say, allow it, bruv, to me.
Oh, allow it, sisterin. Allow it, sisterin. Yeah, and just let it come. And just let it come out. And you know, you just let it come out. It will happen. Can I tell you one story which perfectly sums this up? One life story, and it really is my best story, because it's when I read Conversations with God in 2001. My marriage was falling apart. It was just before my birthday. It was literally almost exactly, my birthday was January the 15th. It was almost exactly 20 years ago.
Happy birthday for them.
Thank you. And so I read, and the line was, I have sent you nothing but angels, nothing but angels.
Yeah.
And I remember dropping the book, and I literally had a rapture, a fit, an epiphany. And in that epiphany, I saw a cosmic dance between light and dark happening on the earth and all that. But more, what it was a heart opening. I just remember loving my sister and then loving everybody I knew. And then my heart was just loving the whole world. And I was in that state for about an hour. And when I came out of it, it was like Bobby from Dallas walking out of the shower and being a different person. That's what my wife said. I literally
No one's old enough to remember that, Chris.
Sorry.
I do.
Oh, you remember it? Yeah.
No, I'm
nice one, Rosie.
And covering up.
But
I'm pretending.
They made it all a dream, one of Pam's dreams, wasn't it? And then it was a different character. I was like that. So when I got up, I was like, I was literally innocent. So it was like grace, exactly as you said. It is grace. I have been talking about grace the whole time. I just didn't use the word. And I remember being pure innocence. It was like, oh, God has sent us nothing but angels. I wonder what nothing but angels looks like. I remember that was the question. Walked out of my house, looked. The first thing I saw was a gang of about 7 black youths with cricket bats and pipes and chains, chasing a white guy in his 20s, a bit older than them, down the hill where I lived in Blackheath with murderous intent. That was literally the first thing I saw when I stepped out of my hand. And I literally remember thinking, oh, angels, that's what angels look like. And my body was puppeted. This is the thing, nothing to do with me. I didn't consciously do this, but my body walked itself to intercept, because the guy ran into my next door but one neighbor's house, and I just got in there. Just as he went in, I got in, and so I was in between him and the boys. His mate came out, and they were standing on the doorstep, and the boys were there, and I was standing in front of them. I had no volition. The ringleader, who was bigger than me, was holding a pipe, shouting, screaming, blue murder, I'm going to kill you, what you did to my sister. And I'm literally looking at him thinking, oh my God, bless you, beautiful angel. Literally. And when I say angel, I mean like not with wings, but with like a perfect newborn baby, just perfectly innocent, no judgment, you know, just, I was seeing him perfect like a baby. And he was shouting and screaming, and I was just, you don't want to say that, you don't want to do that. Just really calm, completely and utterly happy to be there. And then for a moment, just for a moment, it was as if, which way shall I do it? I think it was like my normal consciousness slid back in. So it was like it covered the consciousness of innocence, and I went to my normal consciousness. And for a moment, I actually saw him as a big black guy with a pipe who could easily hit me in the head and kill me in a second. And I shit myself just for a moment. It's like, and then it came back, and then the perception came, then the innocent just came back, and I was fine again. So it was literally like that, just a tiny, and that's why I know it's all about perception. It's all about perception. Everything depends on how you look at it. And this was God, you know, showing me this lesson, because I surrendered enough to accept that God had sent us nothing but angels. And I surrendered enough to say, okay, what do angels look like? And I was shown murderous black youths, yet saw them as angels. And then I was given the perception of, now, if you have your normal consciousness of fear, what do they look like? I'm going to get killed. Bang. No, they're angels. Don't be afraid. So then, anyway, I carried on saying to him, you don't want to do this. You know what? If the police come, you'll get in trouble. Black kids. You don't want. I just kept saying these things. I wasn't thinking about it. And then, as I said it once, there was a massive siren. Woo, 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 woo. And I just said police, and they all froze for a moment like meerkats. And then it just chipped up the hill. They just blazed off. They just ran away, basically, because I just said police. This massive siren had happened, and they all just went, okay, we'll go. And it was a fire engine. It was a fire engine. And the guy said, oh, thank you, mate. Thank you. I think you saved my life. And I was like, oh, I didn't do anything. And I really didn't. I didn't do a thing, but my body carried me there. And that basically, that little vignette has been my whole life. I now realize I haven't done anything. I've either surrendered and let life do the highest, or I haven't surrendered and done lower.
Got in the way.
That's it. Got in the way. That's it.
So interesting for everybody who's watching this to go, which one am I doing mostly? Because I think we put, you know, either way, it's like the yin yang. You're always going to do a bit of one of those.
Yeah, it's going to be a
and you'll do a
spectrum,
lot
innit?
of the other one generally.
Yeah.
And which one are you mostly doing? And which one feels better?
Yeah, exactly. The flowy one. You know when you feel flow? When you feel in flow, that's when you're surrendered, because it's effortless. It's effortless. There's no stress. There's no effort. The more stress and effort, the more you're there.
Yeah, and you're making me think about the fight, flight, freeze when we think about this sort of survival and the nervous system and the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. I was saying earlier about us as a humanity moving from a global addiction to adrenaline to an addiction to the oxytocin state, the parasympathetic, the rest, repair, feed and breed. You know, you see it everywhere. We're not losing our fertility because we're overpopulated. We're losing our fertility because we're fucking sick. We don't know how to be safe in our beings. It's none of the cerebral stuff. And, you know, all those people that went into the COVID fear, the Guardian readers, sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like, oh, that's the truth. It's the Bible. And again, don't mean to judge, but you know, it's there, call it out. But it's like fight or flight. You know, if you think about persecutor, what we were talking about at the start, and then the victim running away, and then the freeze is interesting because freeze happens when you're so exhausted, you're just surrendering to dying, right? You're just surrendering to playing dead, and either you're going to get away with it or you're going to die. But it's also in our culture, in the world, if you think in terms of our mental health, an exhausted nervous system goes into a state that is catatonic, that is depression that we just can't get out of, right? So, you know, we're all self-medicating in different ways, and I just love altered states of consciousness, and I've got no judgment about that. I'm in a physical body. I want to look after this physical body as well as I can so I can enjoy the things I enjoy. That's me, you know, that's where I'm at. But I also know what cuts me off from spirit source. I know when I feel disconnected and how long it takes me to reconnect, and I have evolve my choices all the time. If the news makes me feel terrified, if Netflix is full of things that freak me out, I've got to choose, am I going to keep putting things on that freak me out, because this is your perception thing that you're talking about, Chris, or am I going to start to put things on that help me be in that vibration that I want to be in? And one of the things I'm seeing in the world, because, you know, this mask thing that you're talking about, well, you know, in England, I can't talk about other countries, but it's very easy actually to not wear a mask. It's easy to get an exemption certificate if you are terrified of wearing a mask, if actually putting it on creates all sorts of disturbances. It's not an abuse of the system. It's actually you owning that this is really against your truth to accept it, not because you don't feel like wearing it, but you have been looking into it and you know the counter argument that the science does not make sense. I've got one particular client who may well be watching, Jackie, who has done an amazing job of facing her fear and being an advocate for her children, and literally turning the school policies around by holding the headmaster accountable, calling on the risk assessments, all the things that, you know, when we see things banded around, the converted are sharing a lot of stuff around, you know, with each other. And I used to think that was a waste of time, because I was like, they already know. It's the people that don't know that is the issue. But if we're just going to create more fear, that's not the way to do it. But if people are looking for a way through, and again, it's like the walls are paper thin, right? That wall that's up, it's paper thin, because whether it's Dolores, whether it's, you know, looking at the research and calling the authorities accountable and saying, are you going to personally take responsibility for this? Where's the risk assessment? Where is it that it's okay to do this? It doesn't stand. It's only fear that makes it real. And cliches, false evidence, false emotion, false expectation appearing real. Noticing fixes more than fixing is what you were talking about earlier, Chris. It's like, we just need to remember it is a game. It is terrifying. When we're in that moment of terror, we forget everything until we earth, we ground, we center, we call that miracle. That's what I do when I'm terrified. I literally call in a miracle, which I perceive as a shift in perspective that allows the impossible to become possible. And in that moment, I can be God. Otherwise, I'm a terrified, snake-fearing, weak, crazy woman.
Beautiful.
Well
My
done.
kind of crazy.
Thank you.
Crazy like a fox. Crazy like a fox.
No, absolutely. And in my experience of truth is never an anxious state of being. Truth doesn't give anxiety. Truth does not feel fearful.
Mm-hmm.
Truth, in my experience, the closer to truth I am, the more blissed out I am, the more beaming in that grace I am, the more surrendered I am. And there is nothing that I feel in harmony with everything, like what you were talking about, Chris. So anything, that's a really good measure of truth, because by its nature, truth has to feel good. Because if truth by its nature felt bad, we're screwed from the beginning and we don't have a hope. Okay.
Exactly.
And we wouldn't have existed this long if that were actually true.
Exactly.
Truth by its nature feels good. The better it feels, it's like, whoop,
True it is.
bang on, you know, that north direction.
100%.
When the better it feels, the better. It's a simple measure. And this is, I love this really, really simple test. How does it feel right now? How do you feel right now? Use your thumb, because your brain will just go, yeah, but, and because of this and because of that, and if that, and, you know, you'll just go around the houses, but you can just go, how do I feel right now? Oh, okay. Okay, so what I'm currently experiencing or believing or trying to make a decision about or whatever, reading in the newspaper or watching on the television, how's it making me feel? And if it's not bang on, or if it's really, you know, making you feel bad, I will bet you every penny you have in your bank account that it's not true. It's not actually true. There's false stuff in there that's giving these bad vibes to you, and you're picking it up. And you're picking it up, but the only reason you're not feeling good is because you believe it. Rather than saying, yeah, no, this feels bad to me. You know what I mean? And it's real. It can be that simple, because that's why we're here talking, isn't it, guys? Because we want to take, like you said, Chris, take something complicated and go, how do we make this simple? Because when you look out there, it can be a big stack of lots of complicated, every different direction. How do we make it simple? I think you guys have given so much teaching about this tonight. But yeah, simply, truth feels good.
Absolutely.
That's my 2 cents worth.
You're honestly, there's such a beautiful barometer, and I immediately thought about David Icke, and I was like, he's in conundrum, right? Because you know, and I don't know if you've heard his son, but I have been to just.
I love his sons. I've met both of them.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, what's your take on that, Tara? What would you say about David Icke? Because all of the protests, I was there, seeing what was really going on and the way the media reported it. Shocking, right? Shocking difference. But you hear him and it scares you what he's saying. When I read his book 20 years ago, I started to see reptiles at the bottom of my bed. I stopped reading the book. I was like, I am too susceptible to this. So if it is true, how can we take this? Well, with you, go on.
Can I say something on that?
It's a contentious
please.
one. Go on then, Chris.
So no, go on. Sorry, ladies first.
No, you're desperate. You can go.
No, I'm not desperate. I'm not,
okay.
I'm not desperate.
Right, me. No, it's adorable. No, it's a really good question, because that again puts it back into doubt, and we go back into the mind. Oh, is it true? Isn't it true? Now, I've known about David Icke since I think he first came out on Wogan many, many years ago. And I think I even remember that show. I was a little girl, and I was actually really proud of him, and my dad was really proud of him, because I'd already been brought up with all of this stuff. My dad had been talking to me about the things that a lot of people are talking about now. I was hearing about when I was 5, and 6. And growing up, and had many, many very long into the night conversations with my dad about all these kinds of things. So when David Icke came on the show, it was just like, wow. And I felt really sorry for him, because he was being ridiculed. And I knew then that what he was saying was true about energy and about healing, and that we're all the Son of God, and that we're all one, right? Similar to what you're saying there, Chris. I feel like each and every single one of us has a message that is going to be beneficial to somebody's ears. Now, it's a bit like, if there's a monster under the stairs and nobody wants to look at it because it's a scary monster, so we're going to just pretend it doesn't exist and paper over the door, and a guy comes along and says, no, there actually is a monster under the stairs. He's going to be validating the people that know that it's there, and he's going to be shining a light on something for the rest of people to see, because don't we need to know that there's a monster under the stairs? And guess what? When you open the doors and you shine the light on it, and you go meet that monster under the stairs and give it a cuddle and say, my God, you've been under the stairs all this time and everyone's scared of you, and we all think you're a monster. You poor thing, I love you, please forgive me. That must be awful. Come on, have a cup of tea. That's not a monster anymore. You see what I mean? I maybe make it too simple, but it's like, you open the door and enough people see that it's not a monster. And it's not a problem, and it never was a problem. And we come back to that perception, but it feels like it's a problem because enough people are denying it and keeping it in the shadows, and it's operating from a place of fear and shadow because of our need to control and deny something, rather than just embrace it and welcome it into the family of all that is. You see what I'm going with that? Go for it, Chris.
So like a lot of people, I read, is it called Children of the Matrix, in, again, 2001, not long after that experience I just described to you. So David Icke was part of my awakening. I just found out about the banking system, and then he went into it in detail. So love him. That's the first thing I'm going to say. Love him. Like you said, the way they mocked him and all of that, I remember all of that as well. Bless his heart. But one thing I did notice when I read Children of the Matrix is it was 400 pages of fear. And at the end he goes, but we're all one.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like he tagged it on to the end. So it didn't have the effect of balancing it out, but he did at least make the effort to. And then he's had his old, he's been doing his 12-hour talks around the world and building up a following, and so many of the things he said are coming true and people are saying it's true and he's being validated. I wasn't at the protests, but I did see a film of one of the protests, and I have that radar of truth and that you were describing. I've had it for years, and I'm also an ex-salesman and an ex-liar, and you just can't get a kid. I know truth when I feel it and I see it. So when I saw him on stage, and first of all, I saw him on London Real with Brian Rose, who I knew was a ex-coke addict who's also got his own problems. And then, so I saw that interview and I saw the kind of gnarled bitterness of the years of ridicule that had the effect it had on his energy. And then I saw him on stage and he did the little Hitler thing. Now everybody knows I'm right. Wah! And so just what I see is King Baby. I see the wounded child in him. So I see the wonderful servant of humanity that's woken up probably more people than anybody else. I see the wounded child that has been wounded by the ridicule, years and years of ridicule. That particular Wogan interview was really nasty because Wogan did it in such a passive aggressive way. And when he was speaking on Brian Rose, you could hear the pain. People on the street, I told them, you can see it in his face, you can see it in his hands, you can see it everywhere. And then when at the protest, it was like all I saw was, you see, I was right, and now they're following me, and that's all. Whatever we say about ego, that's all ego. It's all ego. I could just see his wounded child finally vindicated and validated, and he looked like Mussolini. That I said it on my show. It's like, I was like, if I was somebody that didn't believe all this, and I saw a bloke who looked like that, I'd be terrified. I would be terrified because he looked like Mussolini. So that's my view on David Icke. Love him. He woke me up, servant of humanity. But like us all, King Baby is the problem. We need to deal with King Baby because that bit, it's not really us. It's almost like an entity that steals our divinity, divine consciousness and awareness and perceptions for its own agenda. Just like we were saying about the ego to survive, that King Baby is blocking the young David Icke. Everything you said, he said about I'm son of God and all that purple, that was so innocent. It was just so innocent. And I just think the mockery and everything that's happened to him has calcified this entity, King Baby, in him. And I can't separate the two out now. And it's like Rosie said at the beginning, it's like, what's the energy of what he's coming across? Is it fear or love? Really? What is it? And I think if we're honest, it's a bit more fear than love. Yeah.
And if we can listen to, and not just David Icke from what you've said, but anybody, including ourselves, where there's truth there, there's goodness there, there's service there, there's innocence there, there's love, there's all these beauty. You can see the soul, and yet we can also see the wounding. And what if instead of like cutting that person off or ostracizing them or being mean about them or putting them down, which of course you weren't, Chris, I'm not suggesting you were, but just go, yeah, I feel that. That is our collective pain. And we're all, like the 144 facets of the divine feminine or masculine. How many facets of the wound have we experienced? How many versions have been copulated or procreated again and again and again and again through our DNA of these distortions of who we are, that we are now having to go and unravel and make peace with in order for it to come back into harmony and undo those knots. So actually, I've invited David Icke to come on Self-Love Talks because Jamie, who's a complete legend, by the way, David Icke's sons, Gareth and Jamie, are brilliant. They have Iconic Media. I think it's Iconic or Icke. Yeah, it's iconicmedia.com. Go check it out. And they actually did an I Love You Me series with me on there. And they've got loads of other cool, really, really cool stuff. And I've said to them, guys, do you think you could get David on Self-Love Talks? Because he initially, it was all about love and healing for him. He was well into all the alternative healing way back in the 80s. And then, of course, as he discovered all this other stuff, It's like when you learn something and somebody takes the roof off your world and you see it and other people are ignoring it, of course you want to point it out. But I think for all of us, we have to come to a point where, and myself included, where you go, yeah, maybe it doesn't matter if people are hearing me or not hearing me. That's my journey. Let me acknowledge myself. Let me validate myself. Let me know what's true and real for me, and just own it. And then it's like you kind of you short circuit the loop. Or what am I trying to say? It's like the shortcut.
Can I quickly affirm that? And the reason that I see it in David Icke, as per usual, is because I know it in myself. So I was a money reformer about the banking system. I'm famous for it for years and years and years, telling everyone how the banking system worked, trying to wake everyone up, blah, blah, that ridiculous thing. And I remember once I snapped at my girlfriend in a restaurant because she said something along the lines of, well, maybe it's not that bad, the money system also, like after and I wow, like this demon came out of me. What are you doing? And I hammered her for the rest of the meal. And afterwards, I kind of woke up and I thought, what the fuck was that? And I realized that this king baby had attached itself to Paradox, the money reformer, people waker upper, and king baby doesn't care about my girlfriend, doesn't care about my relationship, doesn't care about my actual life. It only cares about being right about the banking system. And it's a very common thing. A lot of conspiracy theorist types.
Well, it's a bit of a savior profile, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, everybody listen to me, look at me, I'm trying to point out the truth.
Yeah. I did it with vaccines. I was pregnant teacher and baby yoga teacher, terrifying everyone. Vaccinate your kid. But if you think about it, you're totally pointing out again look, I'm right, which is that validation we need. Think about what's been going on with Trump and with Biden, etc. And like, actually, how many people who've been waiting to say "I told you so" on the holistic alternate scene have suddenly gone, "Oh shit!" Right? Like
now we don't.
Yeah, and it's it's all in all of us, isn't it? There is that. I know this is real and no one can see it yet. I must keep, and it's like, oh, I'm coming from fear. I'm really scared. Okay, but actually maybe it is also part of what I've chosen as my soul's journey, to be the one that points it out and takes the stick. And I'm learning a lot about this in the process. We're having fun discussing it, aren't we? But in the end, we're living it, and
we're living it. That's it. That's the thing. And that's the beauty, that we are actually living it. We're in this most magnificent story. And at the end of the day, isn't everywhere we look a gift? And isn't everything an angel? Isn't everything God? Everything is love. Is that beauty? Is that grace? Doesn't matter if it's Trump or Biden or, Rothschild or, the other guy, Bill. It's like, they're all angels, right? They're all angels.
Perfect children of God.
Playing a fun game with us to remind us who we are. So through those eyes, sorry for your pain. Thank you for showing up and playing. It's just that perfect moment. And so if there's anything that I could wish more for myself on my birthday next year, so I don't do that again. And if anything I can wish for all people for their right now being born in this moment day, it's just to really come back to that place and go, what if everything, like Chris said, what if everything I see around me is a gift and is an angel? What if everything I look at is actually love in disguise, waiting for me to actually see through the disguise and see it for what it truly is, inside myself and outside of myself? How incredible would that be? And it is happening. We are doing it. More people are doing it. It's like all these little lights on the Christmas tree are coming on. Ding, ding, ding. How amazing. Guys, you've been incredible guests. We've been on here for 2 hours. I just want to ask you if there's any, I didn't say there's any final words. No, anything else you feel like you want to share with people that you feel is important, or anything about, again, where people can come find you?
Ladies first.
Can I just say, like, what started my whole journey was a statement. I can't even remember which book I read it in, but it was, as I change my view of the world around me changes. And I think we've been talking about that all evening. And, you know, my obsession with fear we teach what we most need to learn, right? So making the mundane magical has been a fascination, because I was terrified of being bored as a child. And I just say that we deserve to feel inspired by life right now, and to really invite that inspiration in. And you know, I do on YouTube, I do 2 co-creation meditations, or manifesting meditation world service a month, one for the new moon and the full moon, and that's like an invitation to feel these vibrations and what is possible, like to imagine something beyond what we actually have. So that's, you know, if anyone does want to kind of get involved with that, it is both for ourselves, and through our service to others comes through plugging into ourselves, right? And not trying to rescue anyone, but just shift our own vibration. And everything else for me is on rosieglow.com. Please come join the community, because we are all awakening our light bodies. We are all remembering our soul consciousness. So those who are doing that, you know, we're all here for you as different teachers to share that message in a way you can hear it. So go to what you're attracted to. You know, don't force yourself to keep learning things you think you should do. Just trust you're being guided. And so between the hard way and the easy way, choose the easy way. Because the easy way is always going to have hard moments in that you are going to have to push through. I talk about labor and birth a lot in the work that I do, and it's like you want to surrender in that first stage, because when you have to push through, you've got to push through. And it's like you will have those moments when you've got to buckle down and do it. But you don't keep looking for that, because if you keep looking for it, you're going to create more of it. So let's choose grace and ease, and we'll be shown every which way we're not aligned with it. And as we do that inner work, we'll see the world stage blow us away. Magnificent. You know, the things that you're saying, Tara, that we would like people to know. You know, it would be nice for us to know where we really come from. So thank you, and thanks for the opportunity. It's been lovely to be here with you. And Chris.
Oh, you've been absolutely brilliant. I love you being here, and it's excellent to hear. You know, we've got so many parallels where you talk about birth, I talk about birth all day long. You know, whether we're in a unicorn onesie, or we're talking about babies and birthing and oxytocin and surrender, it's like we're always on point. So I love that, Rosie. It's brilliant to have you. Thank you for sharing. And by the way, it's Rosie with a Z, right? ROZY GLOW.
That's right. Yeah, ROZ.
That's it. Thank you, sweetheart. Christopher Paradox.
So yeah, I'd just like to say how fucking awesome it's been to share the stage with 2 such wise, heart-centered, beautiful women. Just fantastic. What a joy. What a joy to be inspired and have me thinking about things, not even thinking, but just be inspired. Just be inspired and engaged. Normally I'm the one doing all the talking, and I'm the one teaching and guiding, and but I love hearing stuff. Oh, I hadn't thought of that. I hadn't seen it from that angle. Oh, that's interesting. Love it. Just love it. So I've had an absolute blast. And I might have to invite you each of you individually to be guests on my show. That would be fun.
That would be fun.
So I'll let you know about that. And my show, it happens on my Facebook profile, Chris Patterson, Patterson, the Scottish spelling, and Chris Paradox on my page, and my YouTube channel, Chris Paradox. And I just get out of the way, and as far as I'm concerned, let God inspire and love my brothers and sisters through this pretty handsome vehicle. You know, middle-aged, but still fairly handsome vehicle. I let Mother, Father, God do its thing through me, and people seem to like it. So come and join us.
Indeed, we totally love it. We all love you. You've always been a total legend, Chris Paradox, and people have always loved you, as far as I can tell. And I've always thought you were amazing, and you're definitely a babe. So, and yeah, that's not gone anywhere. In fact, I'm loving the look.
Thanks, darling. Thanks,
I remember when you had dreadlocks and you used to wear like really funky raver trousers.
Yeah, harem pants. I had the harem pants. Yeah, I did the whole thing.
You had all kinds of pants, but yeah, you've done that. You're looking good, and you're both beautiful. So thank you, my dear, beautiful friends.
Absolute
And thank you all
pleasure.
you guys for listening. And if you thought this was fun and you want to go and share it, please do go and share it. And of course, all of Chris's community and Rosie's community, share this too, because I'm going to be sending them a copy of this video so that they can share it with you. So if you're hearing all of this, keep sharing this message, because really we all just want to come home, don't we? We all just want to come home. So it's a really simple way. There's lots of gifts and goodies in this video. And also, I just want to share with you that right now, what I'm working on is the next group of self-love practitioners. So I Love You Me method, self-love coaches for a professional practitioner training. And it starts in April. And there's usually 1 or 2 groups I take every year. And there's going to be 2 this year, 1 in April and 1 in September. And if you want to go and learn how to learn self-love and sovereignty and all this beautiful stuff that we've been talking about, go and check out my website, taraloveperry.com. Anyway, thank you. Big love. Good night, everybody. Thanks for watching. Love you. Mwah. See you soon.